Hi, I'm Rhiannon. The reason I'm doing this, sort of a while in the making, I suppose, is feedback from friends and folks that I work with, and honestly, sometimes strangers on the street, that I have a story to tell and they like hearing the stories that I tell, and so I'm going to tell you a story. So I've started this to give a forum and place to share those stories about life and things and adventures and trials, whatever version of those things might have come up along the way of life. And some along the way will probably be of the accord of personal philosophies or thoughts about life. But I'm excited to share this. I hope that you enjoy it, and I'd love to hear your feedback. So the first thing I want to share is something that sort of came up at church today, which was sort of unexpected, but really on point. And as I sat there and heard it, I thought, wow, isn't it funny how you're not sure how to start something and then God will just give you exactly what you need. So the first one, or something that I'll share, we were talking today, Pastor Dwayne at Mountain Park Church was talking about generations, and he was talking about the seasoned generation. And so no age parameters were provided, but of course those that recognize themselves as members of that group were all hooting and hollering and excited to have some representation in the space. And so he was talking about how different it is in the different generations of life. When you get to that point where you have seasoning, you've got life experience that helps validate your story, or that encouragement that you give to someone else is better received because they know that it comes from experience that you might have had yourself or observed in someone else. And so what was funny is he talked about how when we were young, it's about the only time people are excited to be getting older, and you use the half years and all of that as you're coming up. And then as you get to be an adult, you stop all of that stuff. It's not how we mark time. We're trying to freeze it, go backwards with all sorts of things. But interestingly enough, I never felt that way. Actually, when I was pretty young, I started in professional environments. My first job at 16, I was working for Farmers Insurance. There was a single agent in San Marcos, California. Shout out to San Marcos, Phil Lindblom. He was awesome. So he gave me my first start in a professional environment. And I worked there, and I really tried very hard and did my very best, and I enjoyed it. And his boss had actually invited me to consider becoming an agent, but I had aspirations to other things, and so I said thank you, but no. And then from there, I went into criminal defense for a number of years, and throughout that time, I just soaked up every bit of knowledge I could, learned everything I could from the attorneys, from the cases. I read extra stuff. I went to school to learn more, and it was incredible, so great. But there were times where opportunities would come up, and I would be told summarily, because I was young, it wasn't an option. And that was hard for me. I knew how to do the job. I had the information relevant to be successful, but because I was younger in age, I wasn't given consideration. And while technically that's against the law, obviously, I think folks were sharing it from an honest space, not to diminish my contributions or value, but really to help me to understand that there were going to be opportunities that I just wouldn't get because someone simply having lived longer or had more life experience, that was going to be more relevant to some of the things you'd experience in the job. And so I longed to be older. I wanted age to validate the information that I had. And so even now, as an older adult, I'm still very young, but as I got into more mature adulthood, I guess, I felt excited. I loved the signs of aging. I loved when my hands began to crepe a little bit because it reminded me of the wisdom from my grandmother and how her hands would look. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is so fantastic. I'm getting older. There are signs, and I have gray hair, but mostly just this one little bit here. And I refuse to dye my hair because those are wisdom highlights. I earned those through life and years of experience. And so while others are longing to be young, I'm longing to have evidence that I know what I know from years of seasoning and life. And so I think it's funny that there is often this quest to be young again, but in youth, as exuberant and wonderful as it can be, there are also foolish moments that we learn from and can overcome as we move into more mature adults. And so I love that I have those experiences instead. So I guess the reason I'm sharing this is I think it's really important to just embrace the season of life that you're in excitedly, because I recognize that in my early 20s in particular, I was so focused on being mature and being responsible. And I did have a daughter, my oldest, Cheyenne, when I was 19, just months before my 20th birthday. And I wanted to be legitimate. And I was in an environment where there were other women and moms who were honestly the same age as my parents. And so they looked at me and thought, oh dear, this young whippersnapper, what does she know? She's gonna come in here, she's gonna be irresponsible or foolish as a parent. So I overcompensated, and I was the Girl Scout leader, and I was the cheer coach, and I taught Sunday school, and I worked full time, and I went to school full time. And what was the point of all of that? I mean, who was I trying to prove this to but myself? Because I was trying to be a grown-up, and I wanted to be older, and I wanted to be taken seriously. So I guess I realized, while I'm not quite probably officially considered the seasoned adult, the seasoned generation just yet, I am excited to share the stories that I have accumulated over a lifetime and share them here with you. I hope that you enjoyed this snippet. More to come.